Competitive advantage. We've all heard the term used or misused many times. Ever since 1985, when Michael Porter brought forward the concept of competitive advantage in his seminal work titled the same, Competitive Advantage, academics have been discussing or even arguing over the definition of competitive advantage, and not necessarily agreeing. In this presentation, what I hope to do is to come up with a working yeoman's definition of competitive advantage, what it is, how do you get it, and how do you keep it. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at what competitive advantage is not. You may hear an organization say they have highly efficient manufacturing processes, or excellent customer service, or experienced leadership, or that they're very responsive to customer needs. Now, all of these things might be true, but they're not necessarily competitive advantage. And when you look at this list, they could also be essential elements of a successful organization, but again, do not lead to competitive advantage. All right, so let's look at more of what our working definition of competitive advantage is. As we start to build this definition, I want you to keep in mind something called the value proposition. And the value proposition really refers to the value a company promises to deliver to its customers should they choose their product. And a customer is going to choose that product with the largest value proposition when you're looking at equal products. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this. The other thing to remember too is that competitive advantage is an essential requirement of strategic management. Remember that strategic management is that comprehensive collection of ongoing activities and processes that an organization uses systematically to coordinate and align resources and actions with their mission, vision, and strategy throughout the entire organization. Now, it is essential for a successful organization to understand what their competitive advantage is when they're doing their strategic management planning. A couple of other things to remember too, in the world of competitive advantage, there are two different schools of thought. And one is called the resource-based view, that's the number one overwhelmingly, and the other one is called the positioning school. The easiest way to think of these two schools of thought when they're looking at competitive advantage and coming up with their definition is that the resource-based view is how to win, and the positioning school is really based on where to play. So let's look at really that definition of what competitive advantage is. And I think it comes down to the unique attributes that allows an organization to outperform its competitors or industry. And this is usually in three key areas. One is cost leadership. Cost leadership means that companies provide reasonable value or that value proposition at a lower price. The other factor is differentiation. That means that companies can deliver better benefits than anyone else. And the last one is focus, which means a company's leaders understand and serve their target market better than anyone else. So when you look at competitive advantage, it usually focuses in these three areas. But wait, there's more to the competitive advantage story, and that's the difference between sustainable and temporary competitive advantage. And I really like to think of this as in Darwinian forces, as survival of the fittest, and those unique attributes, and that's the key to competitive advantage. What is unique and different to you that allows you to survive and allows you to evolve and flourish? Two case examples. One is Silly Bands. That was a product that came out a few years ago by one company, but it was highly copyable. That could be done for much cheaper and quickly went under, though their competitive advantage was fleeting. But now there's Apple. Apple has spent a decade building a deep economic moat in their competitive advantage. With their unique processes, their unique knowledge, and their quality products and their culture of innovation, they've been able to sustain their competitive advantage. The question is, will they do it for another 20 years? We shall see. But I think in conclusion, when you look at how competitive advantage works, I think it's really seeing it within Darwinian forces, the survival of the fittest. What is that unique attribute to your organization? If all organizations provide excellent customer service, well, that's not unique, and that's not going to give you market leadership in an area. So keep these things in mind when you look at your organization or you look at other organizations and they're successful. All successful organizations will have a competitive advantage. It's being able to understand what that is and then exploit that to their advantage.